Who do you call when Wonder Woman isn't available? Well, it turns out the team at Warner Bros. Animation had that very issue back in the space year 2000. But they didn't have to think very hard to find a suitable replacement. In the futuristic world of Neo-Gotham, Wonder Woman's replacement was Big Barda, a powerful apocalyptic warrior that was able to hold her own with Superman. Casual viewers likely weren't very familiar with the character at the time, but she has a rich and significant role in the DC comic books of the 1970s. Big Barda made her first appearance in Mr. Miracle #4 in 1971, and she was the creation of the legendary Jack Kirby. For those that don't know, Jack Kirby co-created characters like the Fantastic Four, Captain America, the X-Men, as well as DC's The New Gods, Etrigan the Demon, and countless more. Basically, he helped define the comic book medium, but is best known for his superhero work, and is a big deal. Barda was born on the hellish world of Apokolips, and was raised in Granny Goodness's orphanage for wayward children. For more on Granny Goodness and how her name is a very deliberate oxymoron, be sure to add my recent video on her to your watch later list. I've included a link to the video in the info button in the top right corner, as well as this video's description. Her facility served the sole purpose of indoctrinating Apokolips's youth into becoming loyal soldiers for new god Darkseid, who ruled Apokolips with an iron fist. This is the same facility that young Scott Free, later known as Mr. Miracle, was dumped into after he had been traded to Darkseid as part of a peace pact between Apokolips and New Genesis. The most promising girls in their ranks were transferred to a special division called the Female Furies, where they would develop their skills and manifest powers. In Barda's case, she became super strong and was armed with her mighty Mega Rod, which wasn't just a powerful weapon, but also a means of transportation. She quickly rose up through the ranks to become the leader of the Female Furies, where she commanded the loyalty of her squad, women like Lashina, Stomper, Mad Harriet, and Bernadette, who would follow her to the ends of the earth. Unlike many other women in superhero comics of the time, Barda was not a secondary character or a love interest first. She was introduced as a warrior, with strength rivaling that of Superman himself. Raised to be a weapon, she was instilled with loyalty to Darkseid and his doctrine of conquest and cruelty. However, her exposure to Scott Free, Darkseid's adopted son who longed to escape Apokolips, began to shift her perspective. Barda met Scott after she tracked down a runaway named Aurelie, who didn't want to learn to fight. She simply wanted to dance. While Barda was angry with Aurelie, it was because she feared what Granny might do to her if she learned of her absence. Scott and Aurelie had been taken under the wing of the new god Hyman, who was building a resistance to Darkseid. Barda agreed to keep Scott's secret on the condition that he kept Aurelie's, indicating she wasn't at all like the other denizens of Apokolips. Unfortunately, Barda's efforts were for naught, as Aurelie was accidentally killed during interrogation, further proof that she didn't have what it took to live on Apokolips. Fueled by rage and despair over her inability to protect her friend, Barda helped young Scott break free from Apokolips. This is the point that she turned on Darkseid, but she refused to leave her other friends behind. Instead, she stayed on Apokolips for years, rising further through the ranks until she could take no more. Barda abandoned her post and headed to Earth to find Scott, and that's where she remained, free from Darkseid's influence. Note that her blue and yellow armour is the armour of Darkseid's military. When she wasn't battling, she initially wore a more skimpy outfit that was supposed to be a feminine version of a strongman's outfit. Over time, her outfits became more modest and fashionable, indicating that she was becoming more integrated into her life on Earth. A key part of Big Barda's story is her relationship with Scott. At the time, their love story was unique in that Barda was the physically dominant one in the relationship, while Scott was the escape artist who often avoided direct combat. When Scott was in trouble, in came Barda to smash some heads together to free him. Their bond was inspired by Jack Kirby's own marriage to his wife Roz, a fiercely loyal and protective presence in his life. Much like Barda, Roz was Kirby's defender in the real world, standing up for him in an industry that didn't always treat its creators with the respect they deserved. For instance, when people questioned her husband's contributions to the Marvel Universe, she retorted by asking how many enduring characters Stan Lee had created since Jack had left Marvel. This dynamic infused Scott and Barda's relationship with authenticity. Kirby was essentially writing his own love story in the pages of Mr. Miracle. And the thing is, he really took his time building their relationship. It wasn't an immediate romance. Barda came into Scott's life in issue 4, and they didn't decide to have a relationship and get married until issue 18. In a medium where female characters were often relegated to sidekicks, love interests, or damsels in distress, Big Barda stood out. She was a warrior, an equal, if not superior, to her male counterparts, and a hero who took charge. Rather than being a passive figure waiting to be rescued, Barda was the rescuer. And one of the things I really like about Barda's story is how she represents the only way to overcome hatred and despair: through love. Like all who lived on Apokolips, Barda had been a firm believer in Darkseid's fascist authoritarianism, but she broke free from her conditioning, rejecting the ideology that had been thrust upon her since birth because she cared for others. By witnessing the kind but weak Aurelie's death and Scott's own struggle to become free, she came to understand the corruption and evil of Apokolips. Initially, she was attacked by the Furies, not because they were still loyal to Darkseid, but because they felt she had abandoned them. After defending himself from multiple attacks from Apokolips, Mr. Miracle sought official freedom through trial by combat. Barda returned with him to Apokolips, where she rounded up her troops to make sure that the contest was fair. When he won and was allowed to leave, Barda and the Furies went with him. This act of rebellion wasn't just personal, it was a direct rejection of the ideology that had shaped her. Barda didn't just leave, she led others to freedom, proving that she was more than just a warrior, she was an inspiration. Now this is where I want to stop talking about the comic book backstory, because most of the stories after this were written by other writers who fell back on more traditional storytelling tropes, with Barda as a damsel in distress needing to be rescued. There was even one story where one of Darkseid's disgraced minions took control of Barda and made her dance in the nude on camera, and even took control of Superman to get them to make an X-rated film together. It was a well-made story, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it went against the spirit of the character. Now that brings us to her animated version. Barda had a blink and you'll miss it cameo in the Superman the Animated Series episode Apokolips Now! Part 2, where she can be seen among the forces of New Genesis, telling Darkseid to leave Earth or it will mean war. Barda's first significant appearance came in the Batman Beyond episode The Call. She was a member of the Justice League of the Future, the Justice League Unlimited. As I mentioned earlier, the initial plan was to have Wonder Woman be on the team, but when the writers learned she wasn't available to be used, they once again turned to the work of Jack Kirby, whose work they had adapted in Superman the Animated Series. Note that their Barda does not wear her apocalyptian battle armour, instead she wears her more traditional skimpy outfit, although she is a little bit more covered up. This would make sense later on when we learn that Darkseid had been destroyed at the end of the Justice League Unlimited episode, Destroyer. It tells us that either Apokolips was no more, or that Barda had renounced her connection to the planet. I mean, it's also because Bruce Timm likes to draw ladies in skimpy outfits, but that doesn't fly as an in-universe explanation. The Call is one of the strongest stories in Batman Beyond, in my opinion. It's where Superman invites the Batman of the future to help him root out a traitor in the Justice League. No one is above suspicion, and Barda makes it very clear that she resents the implication that she could be the traitor. When it is revealed that Superman is the traitor, well, he was being mind-controlled by Starro the Conqueror, Barda accepts Batman after he helps save the planet from being taken over by cosmic starfish. I found it interesting that they chose to use Barda on her own without Mr. Miracle, who grounds her. But I think that she was the perfect choice as a Wonder Woman substitute, not just because of her power set, but because of her origins. Wonder Woman was raised in paradise, in a loving and caring environment, trained in the art of combat by a legion of immortal warrior women. Barda, meanwhile, was essentially raised in hell and trained to fight as a grunt in a tyrant's army. In many ways, Barda is Wonder Woman's opposite, and yet they are quite similar. We got a great example of this in the Justice League Unlimited episode The Ties That Bind. This episode focuses on Scott and Barda depicting their dynamic perfectly. When Scott's beloved assistant and father figure Oberon is kidnapped by Granny Goodness to blackmail the Freeze, Barda is reluctant for them to return to Apokolips, a place she had fought so hard to leave behind. However, her unwavering loyalty to Scott meant she stood by him regardless. The episode highlighted not only her physical strength, but also her emotional depth. She was a warrior, but she was also a woman who valued the home and peace she had fought so hard to attain. Likewise, she and Scott would not be manipulated. While Granny wanted them to secure Darkseid's beastly son Calabac to ensure that she could fill the void left by Darkseid's death, they instead roped in the Justice League to imprison Calabac on Earth to make sure that no one could use him to conquer Apokolips. Oh yeah, and she finally got to sock it to Granny Goodness. In summary, Big Barda is more than just another super strong hero. She's a character of defiance, love, and redemption. She subverts traditional gender roles, serving as the protector in her relationship while maintaining emotional depth and vulnerability. While she didn't have a huge role in the DC animated universe, she was an excellent substitute for Wonder Woman, and her appearance in Justice League Unlimited was a faithful distillation of the Jack Kirby comics of the 1970s. A lot of her backstory is implied in the show, or at least you can infer it if you're familiar with her original comic book stories. The point is that she escaped a world of oppression, not only for herself, but for others who followed her lead. Whether in comics, animation, or the larger DC universe in general, Big Barda remains a testament to the enduring power of Jack Kirby's creation. A warrior who fights not just because she can, but because she chooses to. Her strength comes not just from her ability to crush heads with her bare hands, but from her defiance, standing resolute and doing the right thing, even though it goes against the grain of her homeworld. And I think that her story is just as relevant now as it has ever been. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Monday to talk about the version of Bane we saw in The Batman and how he was little more than a glorified action figure. Then on Tuesday the 1st of April, I'll be releasing an April Fool's Day video, looking at what I think is the worst Joker episode of Batman the Animated Series, The Last Laugh, where the Joker poisons the city on April Fool's Day. And on Friday, I want to stick with the Clown Prince of Crime and wash the taste of some negativity out of my mouth by chowing down on some delightful Joker fish. Yes, I'm going to talk about the other best Joker episode, The Laughing Fish. Hope to see you then.